RevOpsAF, the only podcast for people who are RevOpsAF and want to learn all about things that are RevOps AF.
Our goal is to give the revenue operations community, that includes marketing, sales, and CS, for any of you not paying attention, the skills needed to accelerate their careers.
Hello, everybody. Today on the RevOpsAF podcast, I am with Jen Igartua, who is the CEO of Go Nimbly. Go Nimbly is a leading RevOps consulting firm that has a bunch of very impressive and large clients and customers. And so Jen has a lot of background and has seen a lot on the RevOps side. And today we're going to be talking specifically about product-led sales and product-led growth. But before I get into that, Jen, tell us maybe just a little bit about you and yourself, Go Nimbly, some of the clients you serve, and give people a little bit of background to know why you're relevant and an expert, if you will, in this field.
Why am I relevant? Ooh, I like that question. All right, why am I relevant? So I started off my career, oh my God, I don't even want to do the math, but over 15 years ago, which is crazy because I'm still 25. So that's why. And I started with a company, for those of you that have been in this space, called Blue Wolf. And Blue Wolf was one of the first, I think the first partner to Salesforce, the first services partner. Our CEO, Barrage and Benioff, worked at Oracle together. And so they started that firm. And I was the first marketing automation consultant hire. So they had just started a team and I was the first one to join it. And through that, I think that was a really anchoring space for me because I was doing top of funnel activities like campaigns, nurture campaigns, free trial flows, lead scoring, all the things in Eloqua, Marketo, Pardot. I was just like living in marketing automation systems. But I was surrounded by an entire company that was very much focused on sales efficiency and Salesforce. And I very quickly realized anything I was doing in my space, it wasn't effective and it wasn't used unless I really worked across that silo. And that kind of spearheaded 2 to 3 years where I really focused on sales and marketing alignment. I thought it was really curious that these two teams that were so hyper aligned by metrics, by what they were trying to do, but they had the most friction. I found that really interesting. Like, why are we mad at each other instead of the finance team? Fast forward a few more years, we started Go Nimbly, and we started Go Nimbly under the tagline. We didn't have RevOps yet, but we had it under the tagline of unify your business stack. And that's what we were driving against. Mm-hmm. And the idea was, hey, we've got these tools that aren't integrated, this data that's not flowing, these teams that aren't talking. Let's tackle that piece. We've now been around 10 years-ish, and we are lucky to work with big companies like Twilio and Zendesk and PagerDuty. And it's been honestly a really incredible experience to work with these companies that we all look up to. And it's also I know you have a lot of SaaS listeners. It's also a segment that's willing to take risk, and our clients are really smart. So the work is super motivating. So I guess that's the why I'm relevant to RevOps little chat.
Yeah, I agree. RevOps, you were doing RevOps before it was called RevOps. Like you said, Go Nimbly's been around for 20-ish years and
10.
A long list of very impressive kind of clients and customers. So before we get into everything about sales-led, product-led, data-led, whatever it might be, like you said, you were doing the RevOps stuff before it was RevOps, so you've evolved with this. So how do you view and maybe define revenue operations today, and then we'll get into some of the other specifics on the different types of motions?
Totally. And I guess on one front, I would say is a lot of people were doing RevOps before we had a name for it. And I think notably small teams have been doing it forever, right? Like when you hire one individual at a startup to help operate the teams, they are, in effect, a RevOps team because they've got one person and they're aligned to the go-to-market functions. And that's like ultimately what we're looking at. For me, revenue operations, the whole point of it is it's a strategic alignment of your company's go-to-market. And then when you break that down, it's like, what are they after? What's their goal? Great. We want to drive revenue. Sometimes there's a little bit of other goals, like maybe there's an inflection point we're working up against, right? Maybe we're IPOing. Or maybe we're about to get acquired or we're acquiring a company. So we're really aligned to whatever that big idea for the company is. And then the goal, like if I really break it down and I say, what does a great RevOps team do? They prioritize the right work. If you wake up every day and you prioritize the right thing, you're nailing it. And again, that might be go-to-market efficiency. That's what we're seeing right now is everybody's very focused on how do I streamline the work of my go-to-market teams. It could be rolling out new products or markets to expand revenue. It could be operationalizing for an exit. The work changes is like the point that I'm getting at. For every company that you look in, they're going to be doing different work, but they're doing it really by aligning the company. They're doing it by aligning the company around a specific goal, and they're really focused on breaking down those silos between sales, marketing, and CS. And I give a long answer because I think a lot of the times we give this kind of very snippy, hey, RevOps is a strategic function that aligns marketing, sales, and CS with the goal of streamlining the buying experience. And I think sometimes that can feel a little bit vague. So that's why I give like a very wordy answer is when you're working in a high performing RevOps team, you're waking up, you've got a roadmap, you're prioritizing the right work, and you're making impact. And impact is defined by whatever the big strategic mission of the company is at that time.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I always talk about, at least with RevOps and this whole notion of like when it started, I agree with what you said. It's always been around because to me, RevOps is it's a responsibility, right? If you're in a business that's generating revenue, then someone or part of someone at that company is responsible for revenue operations because, right, it's just part of your business. And then at some point you get big enough or things become complex enough or complicated enough where you need to actually give that whole job to a person. So the moment you have $1 revenue, like you've got operations start supporting that process. So yeah, it makes tons of sense.
Yeah.
And so I know a lot of times as we think about RevOps and revenue operations, we think of a more, I don't know if you want to call it traditional, because I don't know what's traditional these days, but traditional of you've got a marketing team, you've got a sales team. Those sales folks are working deals, right? Moving folks through the funnel. They're getting signatures. They're passing those folks over to customer success, who's responsible for implementation and deployment. But obviously, you mentioned a bunch of customers today, folks like Intercom and others, right, who have maybe a free trial version of their product or some sort of freemium experience out there. Talk a little bit about, first off, what are these differences of sales-led versus product-led? What do they mean and look like? And then what are some of the maybe unique challenges that are presented on the product-led side or the hybrid side that maybe you don't see traditionally or typically in that more sales-led sort of motion?
Yeah, totally. Tons. There's tons to pull out of that. So I guess I'll talk first about PLG, and it's the same phenomenon as it happens a lot, right? We give something a name, it's got this big hype, and we all think it's new. Again, PLG has been going on for a long time. My first customer when we started Go Nimbly was Twilio. Twilio has a PLG motion. They just never called it that. They called it developer first, where you could sign up and your developers could start using the product. And I think they had like up to $5 free or something along those lines. I can't remember, but that was 10 years ago, right? So they had that. Zendesk was also an early customer of ours. They've had a free trial motion for a long time, right? So for the first 30 days, you can use their product for free. They just called it their free trial flow. And so we're getting into this area where great, now we've anchored and we call it PLG motion, but companies have been operating in this way for a long time. A lot of us would not have said Zendesk is a PLG motion 10 years ago, but they are. And then the other thing I would say about product led, again, it's a motion, right? PLG motion. There could be several motions at your company, and there likely are. You can really break it down, right? We can call it sales led, or we can go into community led and event led and product led. They're just go-to-market motions. We're giving them names and we're creating a framework. And I love a framework. I'm a consultant at the end of the day. But I think sometimes we can get scared by these new terms because it feels like we don't have the knowledge for it. But again, it's work that we've been doing for a long time. And companies still operate in similar ways when they have a PLG motion, in the sense that revenue operators are still there thinking about the systems and the process and the enablement of the teams. They're still trying to report and gain insights and feed that back to the business. Like the core tenets are still there. But I would say the thing that makes PLG or PLS complicated is you do have two funnel experiences for the customer, in the sense that they can absolutely go and fill out a form and talk to your sales team, or they can go sign up and start using the product and get their credit card in, and there they are. And the thing that I would say makes things very complicated is internally, we like to think about them as two different flows, two different funnels, but ultimately they're not. Somebody can very easily submit a contact us form and then immediately go and submit, or sign up for a trial and start doing those two motions at the same time. And it is very complicated. We all know how hard it is to track a funnel in general, let alone one that can go in and out of two, essentially. So I think that's the biggest thing that makes PLS complex. And then also you're working much tighter with a product team. So companies that have a PLG and PLS flows, they're going to have a lot more work to do to align very deeply with the product team, which is not something that we typically talk about when we talk about RevOps in general.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of, I don't know, called product ops or maybe the intersection of that gets brought up a lot. And so, yeah, like you said, I think free trial is not a new concept, right? It's been around for a while, but we like to give things new terms. Like you said, some initial things come to mind in terms of, I don't know, call it like intents or signals, things that are important on the product-led side. You're talking about the funnel before. So conversion rates from like free trial to paid. Some of those things, I don't know, are the first things that pop up. But what are some of the, I don't know, like important or maybe relevant signals? If you're a revenue operator at a software company who maybe has a PLS or a product-led motion today, or maybe you're thinking about going in that direction, what are some of the signals, right, that are important, relevant, that they should have on their radar?
Cool. I'm not going to dodge your question, but I'm going to start somewhere else. And I promise I'm going to get to it. So I think the big thing for anybody that is working in a PLS, but actually, you know what? Everybody. And I'll say this kind of boldly, and I love everybody listening, but we're all being super lazy when it comes to our data. And we're doing a disjustice to our sales team. We have so much access to data points that our prospects and customers are interacting with, and translating that to the sales team is one of the areas where I see the first drop off. And that when we talk about product-led sales, I don't want to throw another acronym, but think about it as data-led sales, in the sense that, yes, you've got product data, but you also have third-party enrichment data that we look at the account level. You also have engagement with your existing marketing team, and have they been to events? What documents are they downloading? What are they interacting with? And then you also can layer in third-party data. Are they looking at you and comparing you on G2? Are they showing search signals? Whatever else. And all of that needs to be consolidated together to send signals to the sales team. And I think about the building blocks of PLS in four things. One is data, right? So like we're collecting all this usage and firmographic data and account health, even like whatever it is, we're collecting all this data. Then it's our job to translate it into signals. So we're not going to just send a bunch of raw data over to our sales team. Any marketing operators will know we're not sending every website visit, even though we can track it. We're consolidating that and sending that over to the sales team. Same idea here. And then third and fourth step is great. Now I have to send that over to the sales team with some sort of action, some like recommended action. And then the fourth step is to get all those insights and feed it back to the business. And we're actually pretty good at collecting data. We're actually pretty good at all these like little data points. Last time you logged in, what you did in the product, the website visit, we have access to all that. What we struggle with is changing that into the translation and signals and figuring out what it is that we need to send over to the sales team. I'll take a breath there.
Yeah. Why is that so hard? Because like you said, that is, I think, just generally, like you said, we all do a really good job of capturing data, right? We probably have like tons of data in all of our tools and our systems. But then, like you said, we're, I don't know, lazy in terms of being able to get the right data to the right people. So it seems like we're like, oh, let's capture all this data and then let's just sit on it. But you don't want to just send it all over. So you got to find somewhere in between. So how do you do that the right way?
Yeah. What makes it hard, you're talking through what makes it hard. One is we've got a lot of data points, right? So it's like the easiest thing, it's overwhelming. What do we do with it? I think there's another kind of interesting thing that makes it so that we stop ourselves from making progress is we certainly want to have this kind of data-driven logic of what signals to send over to someone and why. And when we do that, we have our sights set on the greatest thing, which would be, hey, can we have some machine learning AI do this and send it over? And we want to do that so bad. And that is complex. That's like lots of different tools, that's models. There's a lot of QA that goes along with that, and that makes it hard. But actually, if you go down to the bottom, when we think about this pyramid of like maturity, you can go down into like intuition. If you are trying to get started, go talk to the go-to-market team. If you also have been in the business for a long time, you probably know the signals. What are these signals that tell you that somebody's ready not only to buy, but maybe expand for existing customers? Maybe you could even create the same signals for early churn detection. You could also look at it for somebody is struggling to onboard. There are all these things that you can do that you can start intuition. You can also go up a level to like basic data analysis. It's absolutely fine to just look at everybody, closed one, go analyze a few of them, go understand that and come up with more signals. So my point there is don't try to boil the ocean and go for kind of the pinnacle. It's okay to come up with one or two kind of playbooks that you can roll out. And that takes me to the second thing, which maybe is a bold take, but I don't believe in the lead scoring 1 to 100. I just think, and I've built a lot of those, and any customer of mine over the last 20 years that I've built that for, I didn't know any better. I've built plenty of those. And it's not that it's wrong, and it's not necessarily that it doesn't work. It's more of a prioritization effort. It's, hey, sales team can only take 50 leads. Here's a scoring algorithm, go after them. There is value in that, but it ends up being used as a threshold. Primarily, it doesn't tell the rep what to do with that information. And that's really what this kind of signal-based selling is all about, is we are going to send over a lead to our reps that tells you why we're sending it and recommends a playbook and recommends action. And that actually makes things easier in a way, because before we were essentially trying to come up with an algorithm that was buying intent. Now we're actually getting down to a cohort. And this is now when I'm going to answer your original question of very detailed signals that tells us somebody's ready for a specific selling motion. And one of my favorite ones, like you can do very simple ones like, okay, usage. If you're a usage-based company and you have a specific limit to that usage, and you could say, all right, they are at 105% of their usage. Go ahead and give them a call and talk to them about how they're hitting their limits and they need to go up a level. Great. If I gave you a score 60 on that and say, hey, they can expand, you don't know what to do with that. If I send you something that says, hey, they're at X percentage of their usage and they're trending at Y, go give them a call. That's a much easier phone call to have. And it has an outcome, which is I need you to go up a level. I need you to buy another package, whatever that may mean. You can have, here's one that I think is very design thinking, and the Intercom team is brilliant, but they really think about what their product's supposed to do for their customers. So they look specifically for their own customers. And Intercom, for anyone that doesn't know, is a customer success platform, essentially, you can call it, but they're managing tickets and issues with customers. And what they look for is their customers' CSAT score. So if you are an Intercom customer and you can see their CSAT scores trending down, so what their customers are saying about them, and they're also growing. So they look specifically at like your team is growing and your CSAT scoring down, which is like probably, okay, you're onboarding lots of new people, you're growing beyond your means. We now have a story to go and talk to our customer about. And it's very easy for them to say, okay, and we'll recommend Fin, which is their AI product. You have a growing team, lots of onboarding, lots of tickets. Hey, why don't you try this? Like that to me is signal-based selling. And you can think about, I've given you product examples, but you can also layer on a churn mitigation strategy for existing customers who are comparing you on G2 to other products. There's your whole nother kind of motion. So these signals that you have to think about, they're really anchored in what's going on with your customer, and they should be small cohorts, in my opinion. And you should be running them and deprecating the ones that aren't working. And every time you have a new product feature, a new buyer, a new persona, they should be changing.
Yeah, I think so. Like a couple of things that you said. One is you got to start somewhere. And so while it sounds great to say, oh, we're going to start with this really advanced machine learning model and all of our customers and stuff, just like we'll go get assembly line through this thing, the relevant will spit out and voila, magic. Right. That is not where most people are, nor is that where anybody on the face of the planet can actually start.
Yep.
And it kind of answers that question on like, well, why is this so hard today? I think folks can be overwhelmed with the amount of data that you had. So like you said,
Totally.
focus on one use case, two use
Yep.
cases. Don't just focus on the part of what data can we surface for the sales team, but what actions can we recommend based on that particular insight. So you gave a great example of, hey, if you have like a freemium product where it's usage based and you have a limit, right? Instead of just sending an alert to the sales team and be like, hey, customer XYZ is at 105%, then it's up to them to be like, okay, so what
Yep.
should I do? How should I do it? Give them those recommended actions and focus on that very specific use case. And then, like you said, add more of those on, stop
Yep.
doing the ones that aren't working. And that's how you can chip away at this. And you got to start somewhere.
Yep.
I always like the example of if you're not embarrassed by the V1 of something that you put out there,
You've
then
gone too late.
you waited too
Yeah.
long. And that can apply to if you're building a software product, that can apply to a new process, right? That you're trying to roll out. If it's not a little bit clunky, and if you don't look back at that and say, I'm a little embarrassed that I did that, you waited too long.
Yeah. And if I can look, we're talking about intercom, and intercom is a beautiful motion now. But the first one was a data load. So that is how we started, is we had one defined use case that we knew was really exciting. And we were like, okay, let's go pull the list of everybody that has that. It was like a couple hundred. And we uploaded it and sent alerts to the sales team. And we did a cohort and we tried to see, does this convert higher than the rest of the motion? And it did. So I was like, great, we've found some success. We're keeping that one. Let's keep layering them on. And then we built a system that does this automatically, that we have a data warehouse and we've got cohort analysis going on in there, and we translate those signals and we send them into custom objects in a Salesforce, and we have alert systems also in custom objects to the sales team, and they can convert them into opportunities. And then we can look at signals by opportunity. Like now we've created this Rolls Royce, but we did start out with data loads and what we call them playbooks. So it's like, hey, playbook 1 is running. How well did it do?
Yeah. And I like the example about thinking about what might indicate a pain point for your own customers. So we talk about, you can see things like usage, like how many times are people logging in? How many times are they using this particular feature? But flipping that around and saying, okay, what might be an example, or what signal can I use that would be an example of my customer experiencing a pain point? Like you said, if your customer satisfaction score is going down, but you see them adding more users, that's a very good indication of some pain that's probably being experienced there, and also some opportunity not only for them to make improvements, but for you to deliver more products for that particular account.
Totally. And it does become product specific for the most part, right? You have to look at how your product is used and what those signals might mean. But there ends up being a few categories that you can look into. So one of the outcomes that you want for a lot of people is, all right, maybe I'm in a low tier and I want to go up a tier, or maybe I'm free and I want to get to paid. And you can look specifically at what are the signals that tell me somebody would get there and work backwards. One of the easiest ones for, hey, I want to sell them into like the enterprise level tier is multiple departments using your data, right? Like multiple instances. So for example, this is honestly for all of our customers. I could have somebody using it from the product team, somebody from the marketing team, someone from the CS team. And then I can go back, try to figure out who my champions are, elevate it so I can get to a CFO or to a chief security officer and say, hey, everybody at your company is using us. If you go up a tier, you get single sign-on, you get whatever security profiles, you get one bill, you get a discount, and we can go have that conversation. That's an interesting one where you have a bunch of champions, but maybe none of those are actually the decision maker. And you have to pull back and go have that conversation with somebody else. So there's that piece. And then retention is a huge one. We talked about growth on usage, but it could be the opposite. Maybe usage is trending below 30% and we're at the 50% mark through your contract. Like that's an issue. They're not utilizing, they're probably going to churn at the end of the year if they've only used 30% of their contract, or they're going to downgrade. And so we need to go have a discussion now, not 1 month before the renewal. So you're going to get pretty deep into understanding where your customer is at, and then you can come up with a bazillion different playbooks. You'll do the analysis. Don't roll one out that has 6 people. Make sure that they're broad enough, but the work never ends. It's really that kind of growth marketing mindset.
Yeah. And I've got two other questions, one
Cool.
RevOps, one non-RevOps related. So at least for revenue operators out there, either maybe early on in their product-led journey with their company, or that are where the company's looking to move maybe to a product-led motion or a hybrid sort of motion. What's one, I don't know, like surprise that you've seen with your own clients and the differences between them, either for better or for worse, that folks should be aware of?
Yeah. There's two things. I think one, for product-led sales, it's actually curious. There's not typically one owner. So it makes it a little bit more complex. When we're working with sales-led, great, VP of sales can go make a decision. You have, like we talked about earlier in this, you have to get the kind of goodwill and win and requirements from top of funnel marketing, from sales, obviously from product now, which is maybe relationships that revenue operators haven't gone deep on. Obviously, finance is super involved. Systems, if you're a large company, because now we're talking free trial flows or free signups. Just the importance of that alignment and the fact that there's not typically one person sitting on top. For some of our customers, we've become that person because somebody needs to translate for the entire business and make some hard decisions. I think RevOps is pretty well aligned to do that. So that was one big aha moment. And then I think the second we talked about, but the importance of data in this process. Again, it's kind of data-led sales. And there are projects that you can do to really align the business. Go normalize all the data points that you're talking about. So if you're going to look at your customers by industry, you better have one industry field the entire company believes in, and the product team's using the same one as the marketing team, as a sales team. That's something that it's thankless work until you're done. Nobody gets excited about it, but promise you, once you have it in their hands, you're going to feel how conversations are much more aligned. So getting nomenclature in a really good place so that the entire business is speaking in the same way, whether that's data points or terms. And you're going to get into the space of MQLs versus PQLs versus account QLs, AQLs. And if you can be the forcing nature of defining those terms for the business and getting them speaking the same language, meetings will get a lot shorter.
Yeah, simple. And it's simple can be complex, right? Like
totally.
There are things that you don't necessarily anticipate. Because again, like free trial, for example, you're like, hey, I'm moving things to like a more simple process for the user, the buyer, right? But then in doing that, you now have a lot of other internal stakeholders, right? And teams, things that you're working with. So yeah, that makes complete sense. I can see how you may start down that path, and then that might be a realization very late that you might need to unwind some of the work.
There's a lot of psychology in it too. And product teams are better at that than revenue operations teams. They really think about what's a user doing. And that's something that for anybody that's getting into this space, it's a gift that you get to work with product teams. You'll learn a lot about how they think. And it's practices that as revenue operators, we could really take hold of. If you think about it, we talk about road mapping a lot as revenue operators. Very few and far between will you see a great roadmap. Product teams, you would never trust a product team without it. Getting access to great product minds is only going to make you a better operator.
Yeah, I love that. And then last question for you before I let you run. Outside of doing the CEO thing and being a revenue operator, what's one thing you're passionate about outside of leading a business? Yeah, just one.
I can't do one.
All right, you got two. Pick two.
I have many. I live a full life outside of Go Nimbly, and I advocate for that. I don't think that you can only be successful in business if you hustle 100% on your business. I learned so much from things outside of work and my network. Two things I'm passionate about. One, I make board games. So I have a board game company called Pillbox Games. I learn a ton about kind of B2C marketing and what it's like to sell a $25 product and how to get really creative there. So that's been really fun. And then the second thing is I really love improv and comedy. So I used to do improv. I haven't really gotten back on stage since COVID, but that's taught me a lot about how to run teams and how to collaborate. My boyfriend's a stand-up comedian, so I'm at comedy shows all the time. And like I did a This Week in SaaS. I have a video series that I do, and that's great for business, but also I have my comedian friends. Like my boyfriend helps me write the scripts. My friend Tucker is the one that does the video editing. And it's the kind of work-life divide for me is very loose. And I just believe in learning from lots of different industries and lots of different people. And it's been really beautiful. So I encourage, like, side hustles are encouraged at Go Nimbly. People will learn in tons of different ways. And if you are 100% doing only work, I promise you'll regret it 10, 20 years from now.
Yeah. And you'll burn yourself out pretty.
Totally.
Yeah. I love the This Week in SaaS
Thank you.
It's awesome. The board games are great. And Jen will be speaking again at RevOpsAF next year in May. I don't think we've, at least by the time this airs, we won't have officially announced the location yet.
But it's good. It's good.
Good. And she will be speaking more in depth on this whole notion of kind of product-led sales and kind of signals and how RevOps can best support their companies in that sense. So Jen, thank you very much. It is always a pleasure, and I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode, everybody.
For more great content like this, join our community at RevOpsCoop.com and check out the links provided in the show notes.
Keep it RevOpsAF, y'all.